stalker who watched me through my windows and came into my apartment might be back in my life. 3 years ago, I was living with my then boyfriend in a 1-bedroom apartment in a little mountain town. It was a half-basement unit, so the bottom of all our windows were level with the ground outside. It was also an older apartment and not all the windows could fully lock. One day, my boyfriend comes home from work while I'm laying on the sofa and immediately runs up to the window near me and looks out of it frantically. He then goes to look out every other window in the house, then walks around the outside looking in the windows. When he comes back from this confusing exploit, I asked him what the fuck is going on and why is he being a spaz. I think I just walked up on a dude looking in the window at you. He took off as I walked up, he tells me. This was naturally very unsettling, but after discussing it and considering the time of day, it was about 2 p.m., and the number of people out and about around the complex at that time, we came to the conclusion that it was just a curious neighbor or someone passing by, happening to glance in. With that, we forgot about him. If only that was the end. For the next couple of months, odd stuff happened here and there. Someone would knock on the door occasionally. Then when I went to answer, no one was there. I'd find things in my apartment that I wasn't familiar with, or things like clothing items would vanish. I didn't really think twice about any of it until one night. My boyfriend and I were arguing around 1 or 2 in the morning, and we were being a little loud. We were standing in the kitchen face to face. His back was to an open window with the blinds up halfway, and I was facing him. Amidst our argument, I glanced behind him at the window thinking I saw the reflection of my face in it. The window was open. It wasn't my face. There was a man with his face pressed almost against the window screen, watching us. Given the fact that we were arguing and it was late, I thought for a moment it might have been a concerned neighbor walking up to the window to speak to us. So, I spoke to him. "Hello, can I help you?" I asked a little aggressively, thinking a neighbor was intruding on our privacy. He responded to this by staring, unwavering and cold, right at me. His face did not change expression. He didn't blink, didn't move, just looked right at me a way I have never been looked at before or since. In this instant, I also realized that because of the window being level with the ground, the only way this man's face could be where it was if he was lying on the ground outside the apartment, or crouched and contorted to look into the window. My heart sank. I buried my face in my boyfriend's chest and closed my eyes in fear. My boyfriend, up to this point, thought I was messing with him. With my face in his chest, only then did he say, "Is there really someone at the window?" I whispered yes to him. He felt my fear and took a moment before he turned around. By the time he did, the man was gone. It was at this point I started to think about all the little odd occurrences that I'd been experiencing. I assumed the worst. I filed a police report with his description, and my brother loaded my apartment up with weapons to protect me, or at least inform this peeping Tom that I was armed. After that night, myself, my boyfriend, and my brother were on high alert. There were a couple times when my brother came over that he saw a sketchy dude hanging around, and even one time he saw him at my window. He tried to follow him discreetly, but the guy took off running as soon as my brother stepped in his direction. The last night I had an experience with this man. I was sitting home alone on my sofa. My boyfriend was at work at a little restaurant about 2 blocks away. He had picked me up from work an hour earlier. We had sat on the sofa together a little when we got home, then he kissed me and left for work, locking the door behind him. After he left, I continued to sit on the couch and scroll on my phone for a while. After about an hour of me sitting there in silence, I hear a door creak open. It's a small apartment, so to see the bedroom and bathroom doors from the couch, all I had to do was lean a little to the left. I assumed it was one of my cats coming out of my bedroom, so You can imagine my shock when I lean over and see the door that's opening is the door to the utility closet. I look to my right and see both my cats sleeping soundly at the other end of the couch. I look back to the door and it's still creaking open very slowly. It opens enough for me to see it. A set of fingers wrapped around the door, easing the door ever so gently to open it as quietly as possible. That's gonna be a no from me. I ran my ass barefoot out the door, into the snow and down the street to my boyfriend's work. I called the police. When everyone was back to check out the apartment, he was, of course, gone. After that, my boyfriend and I packed our shit, went to stay with my parents, and 6 months later moved 1,000 miles away from that town. That was the end of it. Update. I live 1,000 miles away from where this all happened, so a part of me thinks there's no way this person could have found me. But last week, I heard a knock on the front door of my apartment. I was expecting a package, so I figured it was a delivery driver and didn't answer. I'll get the package later. Then they knocked again, and again. The third one made me feel uneasy, so I waited a good 20 minutes to check the door. When I did, there was no package, no note, no nothing. Someone was just knocking. Although it made me uneasy, I didn't initially think back to my stressful experience in my last town. Then 2 days ago, I went out to get groceries. I have a little patio, and I go out there in the morning to just chill or check on plants a lot. And I've been known to leave it unlocked during the day on accident. Never thought of it as a huge deal until I came home from the store 2 days ago, and the deadbolt to my apartment was locked. The deadbolt that can only be locked from the inside of the apartment, period. I assumed we got robbed because I dumbly left my patio unlocked. I called my sister and I called my current new boyfriend. I waited for people to be with me and I went into my apartment through the sliding glass patio door. Nothing was out of place, nothing of value was taken. At this point, my heart sank. Nothing was touched, nothing stolen, but someone was inside my apartment just because they wanted to be. I told my boyfriend about my stalker, and he is not taking this shit lightly, like my past boyfriend. I filed a police report. We checked for recording devices and cameras. He put Nest cameras up all over the place, and we're remaining vigilant. I really, truly hope this is a coincidence, but if this man really followed me across multiple state lines, there's no one on this earth I'm less interested in meeting. Update. So, a couple of neighbors that I'm friends with have been helping me be on the lookout for suspicious characters, and then today, one of them told me that on Sunday night, while I was home, a strange woman who she's never seen around the complex knocked on her door around 9:45 p.m. and asked if I lived there. She didn't use my name, just described me. My neighbor, knowing the situation with me, just said, "No," and closed the door. I don't know what the hell is going on, and this new development has really confused me. But if anyone has any idea what might be happening, I would really, really appreciate the advice. Woke up to Stalker standing in my backyard. In high school, I had a stalker. Here's the story. I'll try to keep it concise, but there's a lot of information for sure. I was 16 and we met on Facebook. He went to a school nearby and we decided to meet up for a movie. We had a great time together and ended up dating. First time he came to my parents' house, he had an ankle monitor on for house arrest and wouldn't tell anyone why. Red flag number 1. And since he was a minor, we couldn't find out. My parents obviously didn't allow us to hang out, so we hung out at his house or around town at the YMCA camp. I was rebellious and naive. Things started to get weird when I noticed his family was pretty odd. One day we were getting comfortable in his bedroom and I saw his father looking through the blinds. I screamed and called him out and his dad ran off. Stalker guy told me that his dad was just and two redheads and liked to watch us. So, this wasn't the first time. I went to leave and his mom was doing drugs in the kitchen, so I decided it was time to break up. Unfortunately, that's when it got bad. He started crying and told me that he's in cancer treatment, and that's why he needs me. He doesn't have long to live, blah, blah, blah. I believed him and told him we could be friends. This is when the stalking started. He switched schools to my high school, but never went to class. He would just stand outside of my classroom, looking inside until it was next period. When I would leave class, he wouldn't address me. He would just follow about 3 meters behind me to my next period. He would stand outside the classroom again. I was too intimidated to say anything to him. He was 6'4" and a heavy-set guy, so I just let it happen for weeks. It started to progress where he would follow me home every day. He would get on the same bus as me, despite living across town, and again would walk 3 meters behind me all the way to my house. He would stand outside, just staring up at the window until around the time my parents got home. Then he would just leave. Finally, I told him to fuck off and leave me alone. I told him we can no longer be friends and to forget about me. However, that escalated things way further. I started getting about 150 calls a night. Half of them were him screaming death threats and in detail torture methods that he wanted to do to me. And the other half were him singing me love songs that he wrote on his guitar. Every time I blocked his number, he seemed to just magically get a new one and leave more messages on that. I woke up one day to see that overnight he had left me one of those dancing, singing snowmen on my porch. He had stabbed it in the head, and the knife was still sticking out. He covered it in his cologne that I had previously mentioned liking the smell of, and I noticed there was a hole where the little song recording device was. When I pressed the hand, it wasn't the regular Frosty the Snowman song that played. It was his voice singing eerily, "I'm gonna have you forever. I'm never going to let you be." I was done at this point and told my parents, who contacted the school. They suspended him, but he still waited at my bus stop every day and walked to my home with me. One day he ran at me like he was going to tackle me. When I tensed up for the impact, he stopped and hugged me. It wasn't a regular hug. It was like he was trying to crush me. I was 5'1" and about 90 pounds at the time, and he ended up cracking one of my ribs. The fear and pain combined made me cry, and he started crying too before running off. He left me a voicemail apologizing in a song. This one night is the night I'll never forget, and it's the reason we got a restraining order, and my dad got a gun. I woke up one evening for no reason, just fully awake. I got up to go to the kitchen and get a glass of water to relax, and in the reflection on my fridge, I saw movement in the backyard. I couldn't see well because it was light inside the house, but it was so dark outside. So I went to the back sliding glass door to get a better look. When I got closer, I was met with a silhouette of a tall man standing just outside the door. He was in my backyard, under my room, at 3 o'clock in the morning. He was just staring at me. I yelled and my parents got up, but he was gone by the time my dad went outside. There's a patio right outside my bedroom window that goes all the way to the ground, so it's possible he could have been on top of the patio looking directly into my bedroom window before. We got a restraining order granted shortly after that, and the stalker guy dropped out of school. I haven't seen him in person since, but every 6 months, he makes a new Facebook and tries to friend request me. I just block it and report it every time. Scary stuff. Have you ever heard of the belief that if you wake up in the middle of the night for no reason, then someone's watching you? Well, maybe that's true. My childhood stalker tried to murder my best friend. Back in 1998 or 99, I was around 5 or 6 years old, living in a crime and drug-ridden part of our downtown area. Our house had a giant backyard that was full of thick, jungle-like trees and bushes that had been taken over by the earth, and also random passerbys. We knew this due to the paraphernalia that were around, and half of a mattress that had once been on the forest floor that had since grown 15 feet into the air with the trees. There was also a path that people would use as a shortcut to the main road, so there was a lot of traffic with shady people passing through. When you're a kid, this is a nightmare of a backyard, so I was spooked ever since we moved in. I would complain constantly to my mom about someone watching me from outside my window when I would try to sleep. Once or twice, there had been times of him watching me, and he had shined a flashlight in my room and I saw a flash of his face, which I can still picture. His dark eyes burned through me, and for a while I never said anything, but eventually I told someone. My mom always said it was just a nightmare and brushed it off for a week or two while ignoring my relentless complaints. Eventually, after having to fight with me to go to sleep one night, my mom had dragged me outside the next morning to prove me wrong. We went outside to my window, and to her surprise, the grass had been stomped on only outside of my window. It was to the point that the grass was almost all dead and only mud remained. There were also tons of scratch marks from a tool of some kind outside the window, as if someone was trying to break in. I was in a basement with one of those small windows that don't open, so breaking in through there is super unlikely, but it still shook my family. My mom was horrified and had started making plans to move, but we were so broke growing up that leaving right away was not an option. Around that same time, me and my best friend, who was also my next door neighbor, had become inseparable. We hung out all the time and had no sense of danger and would do dumb things like go to other neighbors' houses and ask for candy. Our favorite was this elderly lady who always had hostess cakes for us, and we would actually go inside her house to hang out there. She was unbelievably nice and took care of us in a way. Our parents had no idea we did this, but it was our little secret. One day, we were playing around the neighborhood, and my mom yelled at me to come home so we could go pick up dinner just around the corner. We were only gone for 15 minutes at most, and when we came back to the house, we were in complete shock. The street was closed off with crime scene tape. There were 2 or 3 news station vans, a dozen police cars, and either a life flight helicopter getting ready to touch down or a news helicopter. While we were gone getting food, a man who was not from the neighborhood, but who had been staying with his mom for the last few weeks, had walked past my best friend's yard and saw her on the phone. She was talking to a friend and making faces or whatever, and this man thought she was making fun of him and talking about him on the phone. This man got so upset at the thought of someone making fun of him that he walked back to his mom's house and came back with a butcher's knife and was planning on killing this girl for mistreating him. Because of where she was sitting on the porch, she could see him coming back with the knife and ran inside the home and locked herself in the bathroom. She called the police right away. Unfortunately, my friend's mom was in the kitchen and was not as lucky. The man took his anger out on her mother and stabbed her so many times that I can't even remember the number. Somehow, after the amount of times her mother was stabbed, she survived and made a full recovery after many surgeries. After his arrest, the story was all over the news, and I remember watching it with my mom pretty religiously to make sure my friend's mom was alright. They posted his mugshot, and I remember the most intense amount of fear flowing through me. The man who stabbed this woman was also the man who would watch me outside my window. I later found out that we had met this man weeks earlier at the elderly lady's house we frequented for candy. It was her son, and he had initially met us at her house and had been keeping an eye on us ever since. He had only gotten out of prison a month or so earlier and was staying with her since his release. I never took note of him when we first met, but maybe if I did, I would have known right away who my night stalker was and could have prevented all that happened after. We never did end up moving. My mom figured the danger was gone, so we stayed another year. To this day, I will never sleep with the blinds open.